We took over 1,000 pieces of wood and built a music studio in a treehouse, because why not? And it's overlooking a tropical jungle. I get a lot of questions from people about my backdrop and my setup, and sometimes comments saying,
"It's just a green screen."
Let me debunk that and show you exactly what's inside, how it was made, and why this is even a thing. This space is my home studio as a music streamer, a songwriter, and content creator. There's room for my drum kit, vocal booth, live stream setup, control room, and a cozy corner for the pug, most importantly. But it didn't always look this way. My backdrop has slowly got more ridiculous as the years have gone on. In 2020, I shared a 4-part series on my old studio build and the lengths we went to make my streams visually striking, interactive for the audience, and functional for content creation for me. Those are the 3 goals I try to hit whenever we kind of revamp the space. You can watch this old series here if you want to, but bear in mind that some of the equipment and the recommendations mentioned over there, they might be a little bit outdated at this point. It's been what, like 3 years? 4 years, wow, 2024. Ooh. There's some good pointers for streamers in there for sure, so check it out if it applies to you. This old setup was just in the spare room of my old house, so imagine what we could do with even just a little bit more space. Well, recently we had the opportunity to do just that, so we built something completely wild and unlike anything you've ever seen before. So the build. First step was the interior plan, and for this we used Unreal Engine 5 to plot out the exact measurements of the room before committing to the build itself. This meant we could kind of trial different layouts before laying cables, outlets, and equipment, and it gave us a visual of how the space would work overall. Nowadays, I'm using Unreal Engine for so many creative projects. Maybe some of you guys have seen the 4 music videos from my last EP, The Monsterverse. All of those videos were virtually produced inside of Unreal Engine. It's an incredibly versatile tool that I never shut up about. In this instance, it really helped us with the room design in the very early stages, and it also helps power a pretty vital visual feature of the treehouse behind me, but more on that later. So on day 1 of the build, we had the shell of a log cabin as our blueprint and treated and sprayed every single piece of wood separately before we built it, and it took forever. We built the structure on the ground first, and that alone took well over 4 weeks because of terrible weather conditions. So while we wait for the storm to ease off, why a jungle and why a treehouse? It all started with this ball of fake ivy. My grandma had this and a whole load of other faux flowers that she used for crafts. She was always really creative, so I wanted to incorporate some of that in my backdrop. Back then I had a really simple brick wall as a backdrop, which worked fine. Then over the years, that string of ivy slowly swallowed the brick wall completely, evolved into this, and now this. So really I have my grandma to thank for this set design, and I have myself to blame for how much it has spiraled out of control. Back to the treehouse. After the first 4 weeks, the build really started to slot into place. We had our shell built, floor down, walls plastered, sockets sorted. My mum even helped with some of the cabling jobs that needed to be done. And after that, the interior was finally ready for the set design. I did mention that it's a set, right? Not real. Not real. And also, most importantly, not a green screen. Yeah, no Brazilian rainforest back there, more like Coventry, UK. So what we wanted to achieve with this new set design was realism. My previous backdrops were obviously grass panels on the walls in a box room, which everybody had started to do at that point. So with the treehouse, we wanted to go the extra mile to really make people question where the f I was. We decided the best way to sell the illusion was with windows. Now, putting in actual windows wouldn't have worked well because in real life you'd just be looking out onto my bins.
There's so much wildlife out here.
Look at that wildlife. Not the most convincing jungle. So here's what we did. We took 3 large screens placed across these 2 walls of the interior. Our camera is set up in one corner of the room, pointed towards the opposite corner of the room. This means we get the most out of the depth of the room that we're working with. And with our windows at these angles on camera, we can use some pretty clever tricks to sell the illusion even more. So what's up with the jungle outside? It's obviously not just static desktop wallpapers, they're animated. Over time, there's movement in the trees, there's falling leaves, and there's even a day-night cycle. You can even see the shadows cast from the sun moving across the window frame there. How is that even happening? The answer is virtual production. We're running UE5 in real time for what you see out there. It's a 3D junglescape scene in a virtual environment with virtual cameras outputting across each of these 3 screens. So whatever happens in our virtual scene appears on our windows. But There was a number of things that we had to consider to achieve the realism we wanted with this window idea. Firstly, the colors of each TV. We're using different brand name screens, which I would not recommend. We did it to save on cost. So we've had to tinker a lot in the settings to get the color grade of each screen as identical as possible, otherwise it ruins the illusion. Next, the focus point of the camera in the room itself means that most things in the background are slightly out of focus. If everything were in focus and you saw the screens as sharply as you see me, it would look way too fake. It also means that because they're out of focus, we don't have to run this junglescape scene with all these 3D models within Unreal at its highest quality. So we save on the processing power, we don't put too much pressure on the hundreds of hamsters on their wheels powering up the PCs that run Unreal Engine Live. Everyone's a winner. Next was the depth of the window frames. We wanted these to appear quite deep to create a kind of realistic perspective, so your eye tells you that you're not just looking at a flat screen. What we did was we added a wooden object virtually in the scene to pose as the inner window frame in 3D. It's a small detail, but I think it's a really effective kind of thing for the illusion. It means that you really see those shadows that the sun casts across the window frame as well as the day-night cycle plays through. Our windows have in real life frames too. Our friend Dave built these really simple and effective wooden frames that hang over the top of the TV. They hide the black rim and the blinky lights at the bottom that obviously expose the screens for what they really are. But what about the rest of the interior? What you're seeing here are fencing panels, just ordinary fencing panels, and there's hundreds of them. Every single one has been scorched individually with a blowtorch. One at a time. The effect is so worth it. It gives you a textured, contrasted plank look that works really well. I was able to reuse some of the grass panels from my old studio to create this effect of the jungle breaking through the sides of the house. Added some ivy, some vines, and hey, look, we're in a jungle, kind of. When I think of a treehouse, the first thing I think of is the one from The Simpsons. And typically, you always see the tree itself growing through the structure in some way. So to add to the whole nature breaking in idea, I decided to try and build my own tree that would work in a similar way. It's made out of Amazon boxes, anaglypta wallpaper for the bark texture, and some dried out branches harvested from hydrangea bushes in my garden. Another reason for the tree, and probably the main reason, was for my dog to have a cozy and very elaborate dog bed where she can cuddle up. You know, like that scene from Lord of the Rings where they're hiding from the screeching things into the tree roots? It's like that, but more cozy, less screeching, less hobbit feet. And now she finally has a space to guard the ring that rules them all. And I guess the last reason for the tree is so that it appears like those branches are holding up the roof up there. I'm super pleased with the result. It looks kind of cool. And it doubles up as a hidey hole for all the shit that I usually leave around the studio so people don't think I'm messy. It's a winner. There's so many things that went into this build that we haven't covered yet. The vocal booth, the studio patching, the ways people interact with the treehouse in the backdrop on stream. So much to go into. It makes sense for me to cover these in future videos. In the meantime, I would love to hear what you think of the treehouse studio so far. You can tune into any of my Twitch streams to see it in action if you want. I go live Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays from 9 p.m. UK time. We always do live music, either on guitar, vocals, or on drums these days as well. And every song we play is picked by people in chat. Also, comment below if you have any questions about the build, about Unreal Engine, or anything relating to your own setups. I'll be happy to help if I can. If you're thinking about building a unique set for you, always think with functionality in mind first. How is it going to help you create content easier? As a pointer, here's a reminder of those 3 goals I mentioned earlier that I try to achieve whenever we're kind of working on the space. Number 1, it has to be visually striking. Number 2, try and make it interactive for viewers if that's something that you do. And number 3, most importantly, it needs to be functional for you. I have a lot of people to thank for their help in the build of this thing, especially patrons on Patreon and our community on Twitch who largely helped me to make this a thing, a reality. So thank you guys. On hand for the build, a huge thanks to my partner James, who headed up a lot of the technical aspects and continues to do that in the background. Our good friend Al, who helps with a lot of the custom coding that we need. Our friend Dave, who helped with the build of the structure inside and out. Our families and friends who chipped in across the year, hammering nails, soundproofing walls, and a whole lot more. And a special thanks to my mum. She was with us during the build and, like I said, helped on the days that she could. We lost her in October. One thing that she wanted me to do was to use this space as much as possible and enjoy it. I'm happy she got to see it be built, and being in here writing and creating makes me feel close to her. So the biggest thank you is for my mum. Thank you very much for watching this crazy video of this nonsense. Hope to see you on a Twitch stream soon. Bye.